they'll lynch you, but he did, and he laughs at
Hello West Ham Network, it's Holly and I hope you are all well. There are a lot of reports and rumours circulating at the moment about the potential of Ivan Toney coming to West Ham in January. So today I'm going to be running through the key points that you need to know about the Brentford striker, as well as some of the key considerations which help make my mind up, maybe make your mind up as well about whether or not you would like to see him at the club. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe because we are looking to always grow the West Ham network. Now, to run through the basics, Ivan Toney is 27 and will be 28 in March. For anybody that's living under a rock, he received a ban for 8 months and he was fined £50,000 after admitting 232 breaches of the FA's betting rules. This means that his ban will be up on January the 16th, 2024, right in the middle of the January transfer window. His contract with Brentford expires in June 2025, meaning that unless he signs an extension, the club are likely to want to cash in for him while they can get some serious money for his sale. Now, in the 2022-23 season, he scored 20 goals and got 4 assists in 33 appearances. Brilliant stats. Of these goals, 6 of them were from the penalty spot, meaning a total of 30% of his goals were actually from penalties there. The previous season, he got 12 goals and 5 assists in 33 league appearances. Again, 5 of these were scored from penalties, making up 41% of his goal tally for that season. The other question is, at West Ham, how many penalties do we get? Because obviously these numbers would take a little bit of a hit if they weren't getting as many penalties, but that's a minor thing to think about. So obviously Toney is a very effective striker, but the big question is, would he solve West Ham striker issues and what would the cost be? Fabrizio Romano has said that Toney is likely to be worth around 50 million. However, Brentford's manager Thomas Frank said that Toney is worth 100 mil plus, stating, what would you pay for a striker that guarantees you 20 plus goals? And this is 20 goals for a mid-table club. What could he do at a bigger club? Now, the challenge here will be that Brentford know that Toney fits into their exact style of play and he does bring them results, something which they have missed since his ban began in May. While Mbumo, Jensen, Wissa and Shader have been scoring, Brentford are clearly missing a clinical striker. They have lost 3-1 to Everton, 1-0 to Newcastle. They've drawn 2-2 with Bournemouth and 1-1 with Palace. And then their first 2 games of the season were slightly better, drawing 2-2 with Spurs and beating a 10-man Fulham side 3-0. But there is no doubt that the way that they're dropping points against some of the easier sides in the league is going to be raising concerns at the club. In addition to this, their fixtures leading up to the January transfer window are pretty brutal, including United, Chelsea, us of course, Liverpool, Arsenal and Brighton. So they've got a really, really difficult run-in coming up. So there's a solid chance that by the time January comes around, they could actually be pretty low in the Premier League, unless they can manage to turn things around, which again adds to the value of Toney for them. So will they let Toney go if it's going to significantly impact where they finish in the league? Probably not at a fair price, in all honesty. Then there's the question, is he the right kind of player for West Ham? Another point to consider is his attitude and the PR stuff that's gone on. It's been well documented that Toney has had a fair few clangers PR-wise, alongside his hefty ban for breaking the betting rules. When he was asked where he played by a famous TikTok account that interviews celebrities in cars, he replied by saying he played nowhere exciting before putting his thumbs up and laughing at the camera, which did upset a lot of Brentford fans that I know. This follows on from a previous incident as well, where he was filmed saying F Brentford in Dubai while he was on winter break. Again, another person had their phone out and he was basically caught speaking badly of the club, which is not ideal. One of the interesting points is that the biggest concern seems to be around the lack of accountability he's shown from the Brentford fans I've spoken to. In one of his apologies for slating Brentford, he said, "I'm aware of the video that was published on social media. The video was cut short, but I have to accept the impact this has had, and I should not have put myself in that position." Then again, Brentford fans were frustrated after a media appearance where Toney went on Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO show, where he said he didn't lie to the FA, but the reason he said untrue things in their investigation was that he couldn't really remember. He said he didn't think that he was fully responsible for some of the bets that he placed, as well as revealing that he bet on his own team to lose multiple times. I think it might have been 13 times. And he also used that interview as a little bit of an opportunity to cheekily flirt with other clubs, chatting about potential next moves, while Brentford continued to stand by him. So clearly Toney has been able to play as part of the Brentford team very very successfully, but there are definitely concerns over how much of a positive impact he could have on team morale, what's happening in the dressing room, work ethic at West Ham. Every time Antonio says something that he probably shouldn't on a podcast, it definitely winds fans up. And the question is, would Toney be likely to put his foot in it at some point? Because he's done very similar in terms of going to media outlets or being caught on film, saying things you really, really don't want to hear as a fan. So who could sign Toney? There are quite a few clubs that are likely to make an approach in January for him. As we've spoken about, he's a very talented striker. There's no denying that. And there are also many, many teams in the Premier League that could do with a talented striker. That includes us, Spurs, and potentially Chelsea, given their striker issues that are particularly interested. It's thought that he'd want to make a move to a bigger club. So being in a good league position, as well as performing well in Europe, would go a very long way in convincing the striker to come to East London should we want him, and obviously competing against some of those other names. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But ultimately, the question is, do you think that we should sign Toney? Do you have any reservations? Would you play him over Antonio? Would you rotate the two? And where would Mabama fit into those plans? Or is Mabama getting pushed out to make room for an Antonio and Toney up front? So let us know if you think Toney would be a good fit at West Ham, as well as your thoughts on everything that we've spoken about in this video. It's definitely an interesting one, as there's no denying that he's an incredibly talented player, and we could have the opportunity to snap him up ahead of some of the teams that we want to compete with. Whether or not that would be at a fair price, I'm really not sure. And I think it's going to depend a lot on how much Brentford need him at the time January comes around. As we've seen, when a player has a lot of value to you, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll sell them at a fair value. It's at what it would take for you to replace that number of goals with another player. Hence Thomas Frank saying around 100 million at one point. So if you're new around here, please do make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up so that we can tell that you have enjoyed it. That is all from me for now, but have a great afternoon. And I will be back later today with your Hammers headlines. Until next time, come on you Irons.